Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon everyone. This is Sabotage from DPS HQ. We have the PTR that's been on. We have a lot of people doing PTR builds, and I personally, yes, I've jumped on, yes, I've had a quick little look at it because I just wanted to see what the tempering and stuff was like on aspects, but we're trying to stick off that because I just want to be surprised and I want to see what Season 4 is like. I've watched a lot of videos of people doing some other builds planning for Season 4. We know there's going to be some buffs and there's going to be some nerfs, so these builds will change. But in the interim, what we're doing here at DPS HQ is we are just going on with Season 3, and we are perfecting a couple more builds because we have a month left, so we might as well muck around. And here I'd like to showcase our Lightning Druid. Now before we go on, I'm going to do the usual of the gameplay, go through all of our gear and a bit of gameplay at the end, but we would really appreciate if you could like or subscribe to the channel because it really helps us out. Even leave a comment because the engagement helps us rank, it helps us get a couple more people following the channel, and it really helps us with the YouTube algorithm so that we can make more of these videos for you. And if you're enjoying these, we love to make them. We hope you enjoy watching them. Without further ado, let's just go jump straight in. We're going to jump into a Nightmare 100 dungeon, and I'm going to take you through a little bit of gameplay so you can see how this works. And at the end, I'm also going to teach you a way to make it even stronger than what I've currently got. But the build I have here at the moment is great for all gameplay, especially Helltides and especially AoE for Nightmare dungeons. So this is why I've got it running this way. Now we start to run down. You're going to start to see the red from all of the enemies. And once you see their health bars show up, all you got to do is hit your lightning. Try and stay out of their way because we don't want to die. We have a little bit of survivability, but Nightmare 100s, it can get tough, especially for a wolf druid. But I will show you guys how this all works. You can see that we're just knocking out enemies. Now the reason you're not seeing enemies is that we are knocking them out and killing them before they even show up. And you can see that our spirit is sustaining hugely. Our lightning is killing everything off to the left and the right. We've got some big hits that come out of these. You'll notice multiple hundreds of thousands. You'll notice the occasional million that pops up. I'm hoping that this channeling disappears before the end of this shrine because I would really love to show you guys how powerful this is without a shrine on there. But you could see straight from the beginning that when you're walking into rooms, you don't even get to really see enemies because you are killing them before they get to you. You're clearing rooms before you walk into the room. So this build is absolutely phenomenal, really great to play around with. You can see the damage here. Look, we don't have the shrine anymore, and we are absolutely just annihilating anything that comes out of this shrine. Stealing a whole bunch of money here, and we will now quickly just kill the rest of these guys. And pop out so I can show you how this build is made. Absolutely phenomenal build. I will have the build guide up on Mobalytics for you all, so you'll be able to either follow this video or just click the link in the description below to go down to Mobalytics. But without any further ado, let's go through the beginning part of this. Let's start with the with our little companion here. This is all the same. This really doesn't change much from any of our builds. Most of them are the same, and you'll see the reasons why. Flash of Adrenaline with Duration and Tactical, which is just normal that everyone uses, so that Flash of Adrenaline. The cooldown is 12 seconds, and you get an increased damage for 12 seconds. It just makes sense. I use Safeguard here for the damage reduction, and now if you want to do the change that I'll be talking about is changing Safeguard and using Fortify support, putting that in there instead. Now I use Safeguard obviously because Safeguard gets me the damage reduction that I want, and that helps me a lot. Now I've just lost my other item here because I was stupid. Tactical and Duration, and then we want Safeguard. Now you can put Fortify support in here. Fortify is going to help with the other thing we put in our amulet, and I'll go through that afterwards. The other thing that we use here is we use Tempest. We use Tempest with arcing so that it hits a whole bunch of enemies. When it hits them, we get 15% extra critical strike against those enemies, and we have resource support, which helps keep our spirit up really, really high. It's going to help rather than having to use some of the other builds that you see that people are using with Earth and Might and with all these other things, trying to proc different builds and proc Earth skills and use all these different types of things. This is just a straightforward Storm build, pure Storm. Just go out there, hit your Storm, and your Storm skills will be able to actually keep your sustain up on your Spirit. Now going across, we're going to go into our gear. Now we have this gear in a certain way. This build will not work very well at all without Tempest Roar. Tempest Roar will make this build, and so do the Unsung Aesthetics Wraps, because these two items are what makes Lightning Storm work. This will give you the extra strike every time it crits, and you're critting pretty much 100% of the time. This will actually give you a chance to restore Spirit, which means that you're going to have a lot more Spirit, and you're not going to have to worry about the sustain on that. So Tempest Roar is the first thing that you want. Second we go down is into our chest. Now on my chest I've got my Juggernauts, and I've got a whole bunch of damage reduction and armor. You can see from our numbers up the top here, we've got 19,000 attack, 14,000 armor, so we are armor capped, and 14,000 life. This is one of the reasons why we have a max roll Juggernauts, which is keeping us up there. This is a really good piece to get. Next we go down to the next one here, which is your Unsung Aesthetic Wraps. Now this will give you critical strike chance. It gives you ranks to your Lightning Storm. Mine's not maxed. If you find one that's maxed, it's even better. It gives you huge lucky hit chance, which will proc your Storm skills to have a chance to grant you Spirit there. And it just means that you are going to have your Lightning Storm striking twice and also doing 15x multiplicative damage. Tibalt's will, because we have a couple of ways of being unstoppable. One is through using Metamorphosis, which we have down here. The other is through Earthen Bulwark. So Earthen Bulwark will make you unstoppable. As soon as you cast, you get a barrier on yourself, and you get Spirit back up, which is fantastic. So that's why we're using Tibalt's will. On our boots, now on your boots, you really want to find attacks, reduce, evades, cooldown, because having Metamorphosis also increases your evades cooldown, and then having Juggernauts here, your evade cooldown is basically doubled. So you're looking at 20 seconds plus. So you really want to be able to have something there. Now I've also got Shadow Resistance to help me res cap. Then I've got movement speed after killing an elite, and willpower on here. That's about the best that I can get. You can swap that willpower out for another res cap if you don't have res caps on everything, and then you can use your rings to res cap the rest. Again, Metamorphosis on the boots, that really helps out, and you'll see in the gameplay at the end why. If you watch the evade, you'll see how long it is, and you'll see how quickly the evade comes down when you're getting 1.2 seconds reducing of every single attack. Next we go over to the two-handed axe. Now the reason you want an axe is it's got damage to healthy as the prime aspect that sits over the top. Now what you want here is you want core skill damage, critical strike with werewolf, critical strike with storm, or just straight critical strike damage. But the all stats and the willpower are absolutely huge, because they help us cap out on the Paragon board, and it means that we get a lot of the bonuses on the Paragon board because of this. So that's why I've gone all stats and willpower. I got critical strike with werewolf. We're in werewolf when we cast storm, so it doesn't matter. If you get critical strike with lightning, this is an actual lightning build, so it won't matter. If you get critical strike, it's just critical strike, so it won't matter. They're all fantastic. If you can get core skill just means that while your lightning is a core skill, your lightning's going to be up. So any one of those stats, any one of those four, to take up the bottom two slots. And in here we've got shepherds, which is your core skills, deal an additional 20% damage for each active companion. Now I want you to think about this, because we have 3 wolves, 2 poison creepers, which is 5, and 4 ravens, which is 9. That's 180% multiplicative damage. That's huge. So that is definitely what you want to have on your two-hander here. Now, Ring of Starless Skies is really good to use. If you don't have Ring of Starless Skies, I know it's really hard to try and get these uber uniques, and we've been lucky to try and pick some up ourselves. You can use another type of aspect on here, and then you can use the other item I'm about to tell you to put in here, or use the dancing bolts on the other ring. You want basically what you can find on here: lucky hit chance, critical strike damage, and any other type of damage that you can find. Or you want what I've got on my other ring, which is critical strike chance, critical strike damage with werewolf skills, and maximum life. Now on here is where I have you gaining all the extra companions. So instead of having 1 poison creeper, you have 2. Instead of having 2 wolves, you have 3. Instead of having 3 ravens, you have 4. So the 1 extra that you get on each, which is 3 extra companions, is 60% multiplicative damage, which is what takes this to 180% all up. So that's what you want on your ring. Now on your amulet, if you don't have Starless, put the lightning storm on the other ring, and you get those little dancing bolts, which is great for room clear. and let that clear the rooms. If you want to have stronger clear for single target damage and just stronger clear in general, on here you will put the aspect that says that you do more damage while fortified. And that's why you will actually put the fortify in for safeguard here, and that will actually fortify you all the time. So you'll do more damage while fortified, and then you'll have the dancing bolts on your other ring. If you don't have that other ring, or if you prefer to play something that's got a lot more AoE clear, that's great for hell tides and dungeons in general, especially if you're running 90s and like the early 90s to be able to just get decent gear, because you don't have to push to 100, then you want to run your lightning bolts on this, because it will actually give you some extra damage, and those lightning bolts can crit, so they do hundreds of thousands of damage with the critical strike. The main things you want on here are 1, movement speed, and 2, ranks to envenom. The ranks to envenom is huge. I'm just going to go across and show you, because this is actually massive. So if you just had your standard 3, you're looking at a 30% multiplicative critical strike damage. If you get the bonus ranks, you are now at 60% multiplicative damage to poison enemies, and the toxic claws means that you will make everybody vulnerable. That's why you want envenom on your amulet. So that's the 2 main ones you want. Now, I've found willpower, you don't need that there, but I just find that the willpower helps out, so it's great. And werewolf skill damage is just damage, that's great. If you need damage reduction, if you find that the survivability isn't what you want it to be, get the 2 damage reduction ones in there instead of werewolf and willpower, and that will help you have more damage reduction. It'll help your survivability, it'll help you feel a little bit stronger. So that's all the gear on what we're using there. What we're going to do now is go across to the boons. So these are pretty similar across most builds. Now, number 1, you always want wariness. You want that damage reduction from elites. Number 2, you want your increased critical strike chance, and you want your increased critical strike damage. So you are going to bond with the eagle, and you are going to get avian wrath, and you are going to get scythe talons. Now, if your critical strikes, your chance is huge, you can do the extra maximum life for people that just want that extra, because if you swap this over and you take this off and you go over here, you'll see that our max life is now at 17,000 as opposed to 14,000. So it does give you quite a bit. You can also do the attack speed. You don't really need it. The attack speed on the gloves is more than enough. Next, we go down and we take the fortify here. Now, I'm taking fortify here because I can sustain my spirit fantastically, and I just like to be able to get fortify for a little bit more DR. If you're finding that you are not being able to sustain your spirit, you can take energize, and then you'll get the lucky hit chance, which is going to restore extra spirit for you. It's a really, really, really good way to go. Now, on the last one, you don't want obsidian. This is more for earth builds when you overpower. You can use overload, which will just emit a static discharge. It's kind of like the dancing bolts, and it just does damage to surrounding enemies, kind of like a mini barber. I use critical strikes with shapeshifting skills heal you, because this is basically like having an undying from season 2, and it really helps with the sustain. Then there's another part in our skills which will heal more on top of this. If you are using something like petrify and you just want that to come up a lot more often, you can use calm before the storm. So either one of these 3 at the end works. Me personally, I use masochistic, and that was my reasons why, because I like to be able to have that heal. I think it's a really, really good way to play. Especially when you're running around in hell tides and you don't want to die, you get hit, you know, your damage, your health goes down 30%, and within the next couple of hits you're at full health again, and off you are, you're off and running. Next, we'll go over to the skill tree. So I'll run through this fairly quickly, because this is very, very similar across all builds, and if you're looking at these build videos, you know exactly what all this stuff does, so I'll just explain things in very short. 2 points for no reason at all, because you need to move on. 1 into Heart of the Wild, just so that we can get up to Wild Impulses for the 15x extra damage, which is great. Max out your Lightning Storm, and then I personally use Primal, because I don't think you need the extra Lightning Strike. There's plenty of them hitting already. I prefer to have my enemies immobilized, because if they're immobilized, they can't move. If they can't move, they can't hit you. So that's why we want to do that. Plus, there's a whole bunch of stuff we play further down where immobilized enemies get hit a lot harder. So you'll see why we use that a little bit further down as well. Next, we go down, we take 1 into Predatory Instinct, which gives us a little bit of extra critical strike chance. And then we take 3 into Digit Grade Gate, I think it's called, so that we get the movement speed while in werewolf form. This really helps. Now, you can obviously take this out if you prefer the extra crit strike damage, but me personally, I just like to play with this on there. Earthen Bulwark all the way through to Preserving. This will give you a little bit of Fortify, and it'll also make you unstoppable, which procs Tibolts. We then want Ancestral Fortitude for our reses, and we want Vigilance for the damage reduction. Some people play Bloodhowl here, so if you're not playing Petrify, you can play Bloodhowl. And what I would do is I would take the points out of Petrify, and I would take 2 points here out of Natural Disaster, play Bloodhowl through to the heal, or play it through to the Spirit, depending on what you want to do. I obviously don't need either of these. I don't need the heal because I have healing in other ways. I don't need the Spirit because I'm getting the sustain. But if you want to take Petrify out for Bloodhowl while you're leveling, that's a really, really good way to go. Now, we go in here, we put 1 point in Wolves, we put 1 point in Poison Creeper, and we take Ravens all the way down for the additional 2 that we get down here. And then we put 3 points into Nature's Reach, which will just give us some more damage against distance enemies. And here, it's doubled if they're immobilized. This is why we're using the immobilized. You can see this is why we're just destroying rooms before we walk in there. Next, we go down to a couple of our passives. Elemental Exposure will allow you to have a 10% chance to make enemies vulnerable. Now, you can see that this drops down, and they're vulnerable for less time. So they're vulnerable for a second, or then 2, or then 3. You can actually take 2 points out of here because you don't need them to be vulnerable for that long of a period of time, because as they get hit, they'll be made vulnerable again and again and again. I play it in here for just normal reasons. You can also put the 2 points in here if you want to be able to heal up a little bit more. But for now, I'm going to just take those 2 points out and leave them here. 1 point into Charged Atmosphere, you do just get this occasional one, but the only reason we're really going into this is so that we can go to the top, which is that dealing lightning damage has a 24% chance to immobilize enemies, so there's more chances of immobilizing. If the target is already immobilized, you do 21x multiplicative damage to them, so that's why we want to get that. That's really, really good. Next down, we take 1 in Neurotoxin, so that poison enemies are slow, but we're only putting that 1 in to reach these other 2. 1 into Toxic Claw, so that every time you crit strike, 8% of that damage is done as poison damage. And the reason you want that is so that when Venom hits, you get 60% bonus critical strike damage against poison enemies, which is a massive multiplier when it goes to doing extra damage. Down here, now this is the way we've built it. Petrify, this is really only for the critical strike damage against bosses, because it goes for 6 seconds and you get a 50x multiplicative. That's really the only reason we're playing it. I've got 3 points in Natural Disaster for the Storm skills doing extra damage. I've got 3 points into Defiance, and the gloves give me a couple more so that we get damage to elites. You can also take these points out if you want to and put these points in here, because this is only just damage to elites, but then elites are really the hardest ones to kill, and bosses are classified as an elite, so that this will help you clear those rooms really, really quickly. And then that tiny bit of extra healing that we get from Circle of Life here. This is what is going to help sustain. So you can take some points out of here as well if you want to, and you can put it into the heal, and that'll help you out a little bit. Down the bottom here, we've got 3 points into Quick Shift, so we do 21x increased damage once we shapeshift, and once we shapeshift, it's for a couple of seconds. I think it's about 4 or 5 seconds. So you do Earthen Bulwark, then you shapeshift back into a wolf while you crit and lightning, and you're doing 21x more damage. Now, down the bottom, there is 3 different ways to play this. I'm going to explain them all to you, and I'm going to explain why I use a particular one that I use. Option 1 is go for Perfect Storm. At the beginning, while you're leveling, this is the best one to go for, because you will get Spirit back, and you will do 20x increased damage to vulnerable enemies, and as you're making enemies vulnerable and getting Spirit back, it really, really helps if you don't have the Spirit sustain. Number 2, well, actually, you know what? There's 4. Number 2 is Earthen Might, so you can get guaranteed crit strike and guaranteed restore of a spirit. What you can also do here is, if you really want to use this, if you don't have Ring of Starless, put the other ring on, and there's an aspect that will say Earthen Might will also work with your Storm skills, so that all your skills with Storm will work on this. It's an option. It's not the best option because it's not the best way to play it, but it will restore spirit and you're guaranteed to crit for a whole 5 seconds. It's an option. I would put this down at number 4 and lower. Option 1, like I said, Perfect Storm for the spirit and for the increased damage. Option 2, Lupine Ferocity, so that every 6th time you hit with a lightning, you do 70x damage and it guarantees a critical strike, and then you'll do 140x damage against injured enemies. So once they get to 35%, you basically clear them out right at the end. They might as well just die. Me personally, I use Ursine Strength. Yes, I know that the maximum life is in werebear form, and we're never in werebear form. I don't really care. The other thing I want, and what I really want from this is, while healthy, we deal 30x increased damage and 30x increased overpower damage, so that every time it hits, this is what's going to happen, and this is how we just get a constant level of same damage moving all the time. Now, I've tested these in the training center, and I find that this does the most damage as a constant rate. This does a couple of big hits that pop out every 6th or 7th hit, and it helps. I just find that it helps to have Ursine Strength on there. Next, we're just going to go quickly down into the Paragon board, and I'll show you what we've got running here. So on the first board, we go left and right for Prime and for Tenacity, for the extra life and for the extra damage. In our first board, we're running Exploit. Everyone knows why. This is just a good way to get things done, and every time you hit an enemy, they become vulnerable. Board number 2, we are putting in Heightened Malice, and in Heightened Malice, we are putting in Earth and Sky, which is going to bonus to our magic node. You can see up the top there what it gives us. And then nature magic skills deal extra damage to crowd control and vulnerable enemies. We immobilize and make enemies vulnerable all the time, which is really, really great. Board 3, we're going to come into Inner Beast, and down the bottom here, we're going to put Keeper. This, again, you can see at the top what it gives us when it comes to the rare nodes getting the bonuses, but then you and your companions do a 10x multiplicative for non-physical damage. We creep up through the sides here and get the maximum life. We also get the critical strike damage here, and then we go into board 4. Now, this is another one that a lot of people play, where they go Thunderstruck, and then you got to get, damage to close, damage to distance, and all these sorts of things. We're doing the same amount of damage without having to use this legendary node. So we go into this board. I come straight into here for the critical strike damage. I put in Fulminate for the lightning damage, and then we're straight out. So we've got extra points that we can use, which gives us an extra board. So you'll notice here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we've got the 7th down here. So from board 4, we've got Fulminate. Board 5, we come in here and we put Lust for Carnage, which means that when we strike with our werewolf skills, we get some spirit back. This helps sustain our spirit as well. And in here, we're going to put our Electrocution board. Now look at that bonus damage. 475% to Lightning Bolt and Dancing Bolt damage. Phenomenal damage. And you'll notice as we go up here that we have actually hit the rare node bonus, and we have actually hit this rare node bonus. We have actually hit this rare node bonus. The only ones we don't get really are the ones right at the end here on board 6, which are hard to get, and board 7 down the bottom there. So we've hit everything up to board 5. In the next board, we're going into Constricting Tendrils. The reason why is we've got a lot of decks in here, which allows us to put in our spirit, and this will give us critical strike damage bonuses at 194%. Just quickly so you can see it, if we scroll down here, you'll notice that I'm at 897, so almost 900. Well, if we take 3% out of there, we're at 900. This goes to 980, plus 20 is 1,000. So we're just over 1,000% critical strike damage, which is absolutely massive. And that's thanks to a lot for this board right here. And then just to finish off with the points that we had left over, I go into Ancestral Guidance, which after spending so much spirit, you get 30% increased damage, but also just to get the extra maximum spirit and spirit on kill here, and a couple of extra maximum spirit nodes there. Now you can again go back in here and you can start to look at some things that you can take out from there. You can come down here and you can probably take out a couple of points here if you wanted to from the vulnerable damage node, because you can see that's at 39, so you can take a few points out from there, which means you can put 1 point in here, 1 point in here, and 1 point in here, which will give you a bit more spirit, and it'll give you 2 more spirit on kill. So you'll get 2 spirit there, 3 there, 4 there, and then on top of those 4, you're getting an extra 2 per critical strike, so not even the kill, so that's 6 that you're getting back if you're killing and critical striking. It just starts to really build up, and it shows you how much that you can actually make these the spirit sustainable without having to use all the other things, like having to proc back Earth and Bulwark, and then having to use a Storm skill to proc an Earth skill to proc a Storm skill, and be able to use Tibolts constantly. Tibolts is basically here for us as a backup more than anything else. That's really all that it's doing. We have Metamorphosis to hit it for the backup, we have Earth and Bulwark to hit it for the backup, and then along with those two, we're really maxed out on spirit all the time. So that's the build, guys. That's what it looks like. That's what everything is. And like I said, I'm going to jump back in. You can finish up and click on the links and go through now if you want to. If you want to watch, you can watch a couple of another half a minute or a minute of us running through a bit more dungeon. But that's basically the build, and it is really, really, really powerful. It's absolutely insane when it comes to trying to fight enemies and trying to fight things in dungeons. You can make sure that ghosts and things aren't coming up behind you, because they're just a pain in the butt when they do that. It doesn't have the absolute best survivability like an Immortal Barb. And Necro will have a little bit more survivability than this, yes, because they have different ways of being able to get their DR up, and this doesn't have massive DR. But what it does have is it has absolutely amazingly strong way to just kill everything that's off the screen. So you can see those guys behind me, they're dead. There's guys in front of me, they're dead. Everything will just die, which which makes this a really fun build to play, especially when it comes to doing things like Helltides. And I can show you that now if you want to run into Helltide really quickly. You can see in the dungeon here, you just got to be that little tiny bit careful just to make sure that you don't run out of spirit and that you can actually keep the spirit up and on tap. But you'll be able to do that a lot more constantly than you thought you were going to be able to. Ooh, guys sneaking up behind us there. Another guy sneaking up in front. There was a 1 million hit. You can see what I mean about evade coming back online. Works really, really well. So, fantastic build. A lot of fun to play. We'll take you through Nightmare 100s, Vault 100s, we'll take you through Uber bosses, we'll take you through absolutely everything. This will wipe out Druid in about 15 to 20 seconds, which is really, really good. And then if you're doing things like running a Helltide, which I'll show you now, you will clear and run a Helltide like you've never run a Helltide before. So let's just wait for this to load up. I'll do a quick run here so you can see exactly what I'm talking about, and then we'll finish up the video. Earthen bulwark, we make sure we've got heaps of spirit. All you have to do is face where the enemies are, and then go and collect your stuff. Start running down, looking for enemies, clear them all out. The best way to play this build is to make sure that you've channeled this up for about 3 to 4 seconds so you have all the maximum amounts of bolts. Those maximum bolts will last for 6 seconds. So every 3 to 4 seconds you just want to press your lightning once just to keep that up. And you'll notice that even just pressing it once while we're running through this Helltide here, we're just wiping out entire screens of things and being able to run through and just pick up everything after it. So this is where you're going to clear Helltides like nothing you've ever seen before. All you need to do is just collect your cinders. Cinders behind, cinders in front. Collect them all up. We're already at 60. We've only been in here for about a minute. So, really great for Helltides. Really, really, really great for Helltides. I've actually been using this build on a daily basis just to farm Fiend Roses and Forgotten Souls. Like I said, sorry, final note before we go, just so that you guys are aware on how to play this last bit. What this says is you conjure lightning, so if you hold it, you channel it, and it goes up to a maximum of 5 at once. The size of the lightning storm is then preserved for 6 seconds after channeling. So channel it out until you see that it's big. Once it's big, you can let go and you can just start tapping the button, and as long as you tap it one time within that 6 second period, it will stay large. You want to be hitting enemies to obviously hold up your spirit, but if you manage to have your spirit held high and you can use evade and you can use earthen bulwark, you can walk in between mobs, just be hitting this once every 3 to 4 seconds just to prop those lightning so that the storm stays big. It means that you'll just have a massive storm throughout the entire dungeon. Guys, that's the build. That's what I wanted to show you. This is absolute peak at the moment that I can get. Like I said, if you want to do it so that you've got a little bit more single target damage, change this to the fortify, move that down to a ring, and then start to use a little bit more fortify damage. You are just going to have a lot of fun with this. It will clear anything and everything at all. And like I said, if you're seeing like the way we are, where your health drops down and you've got to sort of watch it a little bit, you've got to be a little bit more careful. Remove the willpower and the werewolf skill from this amulet and find 2 more DRs. That will actually make you a lot stronger, much more than you even think that it will. That's everything that we've got. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you like the videos, guys. Like I said at the start, it really helps if you subscribe, if you like the video, or leave a comment, or just click the like button. Anything along those lines really helps us out. It helps rank the videos, it helps us with the algorithm, and it just means that we can make more of these for you. So thank you very much again. I've been Sabotage for DPS HQ. Have a great afternoon.